Welcome to Smart, Amazing Conversations with Dr. Nancy, a podcast that takes a look at stories of life and leadership for smart, amazing women and men like you.
The way I can give support to the world right now is by showing up. The most important thing is don't think just that you have to bring anything. Bring yourself, show up.
If you are in a position of leadership and a position of management, bring women along with you.
Supporting women is Dr. Nancy's passion and her purpose, and talking with other women and men who promote women's leadership is one of her favorite things to do.
I've yet to meet a woman who did not know what she really wanted. She was just either afraid to ask the questions or she was afraid of what the answers meant.
Their stories connect us and help us understand that the possibilities are endless if we support each other and lift other women up.
Trust is created by persistent identity. I show up in my conversations. I build relationships. I show up as myself time and time and time again. And trust is built. It's one conversation at a time.
Throughout her career as an award-winning journalist, producer, and media executive, Pat Mitchell broke new ground for women as the first woman president of PBS and of CNN Productions. Today, Pat is co-founder, host, and curator for TED Women, and co-founder and managing partner of Connected Women Leaders, a cohort of global women leaders across generations and geography who are launching a global women-led campaign for climate justice titled Project Dandelion. In her memoir, Becoming a Dangerous Woman, Embracing Risk to Change the World, Mitchell shares her journey as a frontline advocate for a just, equitable, and sustainable world. Mary Robinson is the first woman president of Ireland and former UN High Commissioner for Human Rights. She is a globally recognized voice on climate change and frequently highlights the need for drastic action from world leaders, as well as the intersectionality of the climate emergency from intergenerational injustice to gender inequality and biodiversity loss. Now, here's Dr. Nancy and her guests, Pat Mitchell and Mary Robinson.
We always have wonderful conversations, and this, no doubt, is probably going to be one of the better ones we've had, especially what's going on in our country right now. We need positive things. We need hope, and the Dandelion Project is definitely that. And this is about helping women and girls, because we know women and girls are the problem solvers. We are the ones who take things in charge, and we do something about it. And we've got two dangerous women here today. We're hoping to get a third one, and hopefully Mary Robinson will jump on when she can. But Pat, your background is phenomenal. You know, when I talk about you, I mean, news. I mean, you have been the person to get the news out to people. And, you know, now what's going on, we have a new program called Did You Know? But it's about facts. And this is something that you've always, in your background and in your time, CNN, PBS, and all the places that you've been, TED Women, it's always been about the facts. But I mean, tell us a little bit about yourself, because if people have not met you and don't know about you, you are a phenomenal person, and you've created such a platform for women and girls as far as having a voice and helping us to feel empowered and feeling better about ourselves.
Thank you for that introduction, Nancy. It means so much coming from you. Truly a woman that I admire deeply, and congratulations on your recent award, which was so deserved, because few people do more to uplift women than you do through your philanthropy, through your podcast, and everything else you do. But let me begin by picking up on the last thing you said about me, which is, to paraphrase, helping other women find their voice and to elevate their work. And that's really why this journey started for me. You know, I grew up in a small town in South Georgia, a segregated South, where I saw injustice all around me. But as a girl growing up in that environment, I had no voice, no expectations, and very limited opportunities. But I had a grandmother who encouraged me to find my voice and to use it, and to start to look for where the doors were closed, find other ways in. She used to say to me something, Nancy, I know you all love. When I would fall, as I was always running as a child, she would say, honey, at least falling on your face is a forward movement. And that really, as silly as that sounds, that really helped me in a lot of times in my life when things would not work out as they should, or it was more challenging than I expected. To remember that every failure was a step forward. So as I navigated that through my life as a single mother and trying to break down the doors of media when they were closed to women and people of color, um, once inside, when I got my first job in television, I realized what power there was in information. If we weren't informed, as you said earlier, if we didn't know the truth or the facts, how could we navigate anything in our lives? So I decided early on to use that platform and every other platform I might ever have the privilege to have, that I would use it to elevate women and people of color, to bring in people who were not being heard, whose voices were not being heard, stories that were not being told, and to elevate as much as possible the hope that comes when you actually have the truth, when you know you're getting the truth and the facts.
Yeah.
So that's been especially challenging now. And now my platform is Project Dandelion, as you referenced, a climate justice campaign, which really began when Mary Robinson said two things to me. Now, as you just said, Nancy, I spent all my career elevating women's stories, working for the women's movement, working for our rights and freedoms. And climate and the environment and the challenges I was seeing, they were things I felt were best left to the experts, to the climate scientists, to the people like my husband, who's a chemist and who spent his whole life on resource recycling management. But I didn't see it as something I could get or needed to get engaged in. My thing was continuing to fight for the rights and freedoms of women and people of color. But Mary said to me, everything you're trying to do, secure rights, elevate the voices that need to be heard, promote and advocate for the good work, it has to be done as an intersectional issue to solving the nature and climate crisis. Because if we don't do that, then all the good work is going to be on a dead planet. We're not going to have a habitable place to live.
And we look all over the world, and women are the ones out, the production of food.
Yeah.
Well, we look at poverty. Poverty is many things, but the most important thing is feeding your family, having food for your children. And so when we think about climate, we think about, again, you talk about the dandelion, but the dandelion is a very special flower. I guess it's a flower. I guess you call it a flower.
Well, some people call it a weed. We call it a
right, but it can grow anywhere.
Yeah.
And it can produce anywhere, and it produces a lot. What we need in this world right now is that we have to have good climate. We have to have a place that we can grow food and we can live in a safe environment, clean water, clean air, and a place that we all can continue to grow and to prosper with our climate. And absolutely, I mean, it's so connected to women, especially because you look at women. In the United States alone, we buy 80% of products and services. Mm-hmm. We are the ones making decisions as far as our families, what they eat, the things that'll keep our families healthy. And so it stands to reason that women and girls be very much involved with climate change and the climate crisis. So,
well, women produce 85% of the world's food.
Yes, absolutely.
And smallholder farmers. But it was exactly that thought and the facts you just shared, Nancy, so important to remember, that led us to Project Dandelion, because women were on the front lines of the challenges. They were being disproportionately impacted by the weather changes and the catastrophes that come with the climate crisis. And yet everywhere we looked, women were leading the solutions. So that's where we found the hope that we believe the dandelion symbolizes. As you said, the dandelion grows on all 7 continents, so it's climate resilient, like women are. It's healing, every single part of the dandelion plant can be eaten or drunk or used to treat addictions even. So the dandelion is healing like women are. The dandelion's roots are so interconnected underneath, you can cut them off to the stem, they'll come back. They're unstoppable.
You can't keep them down.
Can't keep them down. And that's true for women as well. And then the best part is it regenerates itself by blowing the seeds. So blowing the seeds is what Project Dandelion wanted to do. Blow the seeds of hope that, as Mary likes to say, we are right there on the cusp of a clean energy world, of a better future than we've ever had that we can leave to our children and grandchildren. But if we keep going the other direction, if we don't start moving fast enough towards the solutions and getting the climate action that's needed, then we're headed toward a catastrophe. We're headed toward an unlivable planet, and that's on us. That's on us, the women and the men today, to make sure that we move this action and the changes needed forward fast enough.
Yeah.
And what we found, and this is our source of hope, is that we found that women, or at least the ways women lead, Mary makes this point too, and since she's not here, I'm going to quote her because I think it's an important distinction. We're not saying that we believe only women-led initiatives and solutions will work and lead the world forward. But what we are saying is the way women lead is what's needed. We need leaders who are able to act urgently, courageously, boldly, as Mary has done throughout her life as a leader, and you have done, and I've certainly tried to do. And women who are ready to use their voices to come together, women who connect and form a collective new force of power, but that can be men too. It's the feminist way of leading. It's empathetic, it's collaborative, it's cooperative, and it's focused on the solutions. So what we really mean by women-led initiatives are the world's greatest ally in solving this crisis is that the way women lead is what the world is desperately needs to keep moving towards that better future.
Yeah. Well, women are communicators. We're also about relationships. It's not about the competition. It's about coming together, first identifying the problem, and then looking for the solution, and then acting, getting the resources together that are needed for the solution to be solved. So, yeah, I absolutely agree with you. Women's leadership. I don't think we could, and again, let's just talk a little bit about Mary Robinson because she's not here, unfortunately, and we were hoping
we can talk about her.
But yeah, we can talk about her. She's not here. But we were supposed to have three dangerous women. So we have two here. But Mary Robinson was the first woman president of Ireland. And I was in Ireland years ago before any of that happened. And believe me, that country, the pubs, the life was in the pubs. And so it was an interesting, very, very much a patriarchal society. So for Mary to become president and to make the changes she did in Ireland were pretty phenomenal, and probably have had lasting changes, no doubt. But again, just talk a little bit about Mary and why the two of you have joined forces, because the Dandelion Project is going to take a lot of things, you with the media and the news and your background about women's leadership, and hers about human rights and laws and governance, and how the two of you coming together are going to make this project extremely, extremely successful now.
Thank you for that, Nancy. When I first met Mary, probably around the same time you were in Ireland, I was there as a correspondent for NBC, and I was covering the Troubles in Northern Ireland. But I kept hearing about this young woman who was running for the presidency of the Republic of Ireland and who had no chance whatsoever. I mean, the odds were 1,000 to 1 against her because Ireland, as you say, was a hierarchical, totally Catholic, very patriarchal society where women had very little voice. But Mary had been a strong voice as a lawyer and as a member of the Senate. but still, she was really an outlier to run for president as young as she was, and being a woman, because in that Ireland, if you were a woman, you waited your turn, and as Mary likes to say, your turn never came. So she took it into her own hands to run. And I met her during that campaign, and we actually went door to door together, and I did a report for NBC News on the campaign, saying at the end of it, unlikely that she'll win, but boy, what a courageous leader this is. And then, of course, she did win. And as she says, that night, the Irish women rocked the system rather than the cradle. She says it better than that. But she took over and she transformed Ireland. She made, she brought the first gay and LGBT rights. She legal with the legislature got abortion and reproductive rights legalized.
Right.
In a strongly Catholic country. She brought all kinds of economic opportunities so that some of the
women were abandoning their families because they couldn't divorce. That was the only way.
Yeah,
They couldn't get a divorce, so they just they were abandoning. They had no choice. No, I mean, literally, she changed the whole culture, the whole belief system.
Every single part of it.
First time had rights.
She did it almost single-handedly, although of course the assembly came along and supported her in the large part, but mostly Mary was a bold and courageous and outspoken leader who said then and says often now, if you're not willing to take, you have to know that standing up for what's right, what's true, what's needed is always going to be risky. It's always going to be dangerous.
Yeah.
More dangerous now than it's been in, other times. But she did it anyway and continues to do it. So we made a connection with each other then that we sustained over the years as she went to the UN and became the Commissioner of Human Rights and went to every single conflict in the world, every place there was drought, every place there was famine, every place there was war. Mary was there, trying to bring comfort, trying to fight in the courts for the rights of the people who were being the most harmed. But she was always there for the vulnerable and the ones who had no power to speak for themselves. And then after years of doing that, she became the UN's first climate envoy. So way back then, as we now describe it, Mary was out there campaigning for attention to what was a growing climate and nature crisis, but was not getting the attention from policymakers or anyone else. And she wrote the book and termed the phrase climate justice. And what she meant by that is it's not going to be enough just to create the technology that gets us out of this crisis, although we have to do that. We've got to do it in a way that is just for everyone, that works for everyone.
Yeah.
And that's going to be different.
Yeah.
So Project Dandelion really came out of Mary's sense of the injustices to women, the injustices on gender and racial equity, the injustices to frontline vulnerable communities, the developing economies. In every way, there were injustices. So to correct all those, and that's what Project Dandelion is setting out to demand from governments and policymakers, and to do it as
so how are we going to do it? How are we going to do it, Pat? Come on, let's go. We got to charge and we got to move forward. But again, how does Project Dandelion? How do you do it? How can we join and how can we do this together? What do we need to do?
It's going to take all of us. And I mean all of us in a coalition of global women and men who support us, leaders, determined to be bold and brave and courageous and call for what has to be done. So number one, it's going to take all of us. That means we've got to collaborate and connect and work together in ways we haven't done in the past. We recently had a forum, Nancy, that Mary and our other founding partners, Rhonda Carnegie and Hafsat Abioli, both of whom bring great skills to this movement, have created and grew up in the democracy movement in Nigeria, so she knows about creating movements. And I think that Mary just joined us.
Mary.
And this is after I've told your whole story, Mary. Now we can.
We have nothing to talk to you about. What a pleasure to meet you. Very nice to meet you. So.
Well, thank you, and I'm very happy to be joining you with Pat. Pat is always supportive of other women and always very kind. And I got caught up in a previous meeting that went on too long. I'm sorry.
No problem. The point is you're here, and that's wonderful. Well, now we have the three dangerous women here.
Good.
Who will speak their minds and use their voices for good. But Mary, just talking a little about you and your history, but again, with your background as being the first president of Ireland, congratulations. And of course, the human rights. And of course, seeing, what we've been talking about more than anything, Mary, is the fact that women see the problems. We recognize the problems, we see the problems, and then we find solutions and act upon those problems so that we can solve them. So this is what Dandelion is doing, but I just asked Pat a very important question. So I'm going to ask you the same question: is how do we do this? How is Project Dandelion? Well, first of all, if there's anything that you would like to say about yourself before I begin that, ask you that question again, tell us just a little bit about yourself, just a little bit.
I think, if I was saying anything, I'd say it about Pat at this stage. I think she's said enough about me. Let's just go ahead with your question, I think.
All right. Well, so let's talk about what's going to happen here. We need to know what Project Dandelion is going to do.
Nancy, can I just intervene on 1 minute? If you want to know more about the life and story that I told very succinctly, I think, of the important for bold leadership like Mary's life represents, we made a film which she didn't necessarily want being made, but now realizes that it actually might be just what we need to see in terms of leadership. It's called Mrs. Robinson, and it's available for free screenings to any community group, so I can get you that information later. But it's important because the response to it has been that people are seeing that this is the way bold leadership acts. This is how we get things done. And it's not just about the Mary Robinsons of the world. We need those leaders, but it's about all of us taking a leadership position. And that's what we've been building together, is that global coalition of women leaders. So now over to you, Mary, for how we're going to do it.
How are we going to do this? We're going to show this film about you and show, again, the importance of women's leadership, because right now it's more important than ever, especially in the United States of America, especially here.
I totally agree about women's leadership. And I think we need to value it as an asset to the world in a way that we really haven't done enough. It's the kind of leadership that the world needs at the moment. And it's very much, as you said, problem solving, non-hierarchical, with empathy, understanding that people are affected in different ways by different problems, listening, and coming through with solutions that are longer term as well, thinking of the future and thinking of future generations, which we very often do. And this is the leadership that is so badly needed. But actually, it's happening all over the world. People are trying to address, particularly the climate and nature crisis, the indigenous peoples, young people, business that's progressive. I know a lot of good business leaders, philanthropy, but also farmers, fishers, filmmakers. What's happening is we're seeing a lot of work being done that is building resilience, no matter whatever you want to call making the world more sustainable, but we're not connected. We don't know our power because we're still operating as individual organizations or individuals. What we need is to link not just organizations, but communities and movements of movements. And we've chosen a humble weed because it's beautiful and it's the magic of nature. The dandelion has so much impact precisely because It's the first flower of spring. It grows on all continents. It's very resilient. You can't get rid of the damn thing if you want to. And also, it very much has roots that regenerate the soil. There's no waste. You can eat or drink any part of the dandelion. All of this is what nature does. But this symbol is somehow the perfect one because you can't get rid of it, because it will keep creeping back, because it will insist on being at the table and in places where it's not particularly wanted. But more than anything else, it is healing. It has wonderful powers that are being talked about, even possibly curing some kinds of cancer. There's no end to the possibilities, and we need magic. We need the sort of magic that I learned as president of Ireland when I managed to join the Irish diaspora through a light in the window. I mean, that light just took on a life of its own, and it was incredible.
Yeah. No, I mean, and again, we women all have to be dandelions now. In fact, many of us are dandelions. That's what we do. I'm looking at 3 of us right now that are dandelions. But Women Connect for Good does something that I'm very proud of and been proud of for over 12 years, which is connecting organizations who are making a difference in the world. And it's not only women, but men also, the male advocates and the male supporters, but who do something to make this world a better place. And so one of the goals of Women Connect for Good is for Project Dandelion to collaborate and partner with many organizations that we can help you with. So I think that's just probably the most important thing that we talk about today is that collaboration of other organizations. We know there is a problem. We know there are solutions, but we know that the connection and the support that we have with one another makes all the difference in the world. So I guess it's just a matter about how we all come together and how we do that. Well, we're doing that today. But so again, we do a lot of media. And of course, that's one thing that we have. We have what we call the women warriors, which are, again, very dangerous women who are very large organizations have a great amount of feedback. I'm on the National Women's History Museum board. I'm also on the ERA Coalition board, some of the boards that our goal is to get the messages out and to bring us together to make this world a better place. So, Mary, how about it? Do you think we can do that?
Yeah, and I love the Women Connects, actually, because we talk about, radical connection, radical communication, radical collaboration. And I think that's what we need to do, to lift all of us to a different level in doing. And I think it's wonderful to connect Project Dandelion and what you're doing.
Well, we have 2 other campaigns. One is the Lift Up campaign, which we 52 weeks of how we lift women up. And then another one, Did You Know, which is all about facts. So we're doing things that we want to lift women up, but we also want to make sure that factual information, Pat and I were talking about this earlier, about the importance of getting factual information. And this is the information. I think people really want to help, Mary, but they don't know how. Yeah. But when we have facts and we tell them about what is going on in our world, and we have to keep doing that, especially now more than ever, then people, and then we ask them for their help. And then, that's when things begin to change, because we have to ask for the help. We have to ask for it. We have to tell them what the problem is, tell them what some of the solutions are, but ask help from each other to do those things. So,
I very much agree with that last point. I think it's really true. And we have to ask not just women as individuals, women lead, but also help from communities, help that communities can organize in order to make a difference. And I couldn't agree more. I think that's a really good way of expressing it.
Okay. And Nancy, I think we're proud of the fact that in just 2 years, we've been able to connect 250 partner organizations that are working specifically in climate, so that we began to create that collective force. And what you have done with the Women Connect for Good and all the other boards and initiatives that you lead is so important for us in terms of building this collective force. As Mary says often, we sometimes forget how much power we have together. And if we get this coalition built with the facts, with the truth, and we have the plan, which we certainly have. We know what needs to be done. We know how close we are and how we can get to that better future. But we just need to move faster. We are moving, as Mary reminds us, when we start to lose hope. She reminds us we are moving forward. We're just not moving fast enough.
We just need to stop listening to the news, which is usually not factual. We need to talk to people who really are, can tell us really what is going on. So that is our goal, is to get factual information out, to continue to collaborate and find connections and support from one another, and then moving forward. So, you know, Pat, I remember when we first started talking about this, was back when I said, let us know as soon as possible what's going on. Of course, this film, Mary Robinson, is definitely a way to bring people together. We love entertainment, and you know what we love also? Are true stories with happy endings. So this is a wonderful.
This one has a happy end.
That's what I said. We love stories with happy endings, and Mary definitely has a story that we need to know about. And for women to really lift themselves up and to continue to, climate is everything. My daughter Reagan is so involved with climate emergency, climate justice. You know, so, and we do need the young people. We're in the process of creating a youth advisory council, so that we're talking to organizations about what the youth are doing, the feminist youth. We've been working with the ERA Coalition. So these are our goals as well. Plus, we are also globally connected with Women, World Pulse and Convoy of Hope. We are connected with organizations that I think could be extremely beneficial to the Dandelion Project. So it's just a matter of making introductions and going from there.
And I love the fact that you, and I so agree with this, that you want the basis to be on facts, on reality. And, you know, one of the things that Project Dandelion has done is to link with the work of Johan Rockström, the great scientist, with the planetary boundaries, talking about how fragile our ecosystem is now, everything that sustains us and our planet. And, you know, I think it's really important that we take that science, which is quite startlingly worrying because we're not on track, and then make it a positive story, because it is a positive story. And I think that's the strength of Project Dandelion. What we say is, yes, we have a planetary crisis. I don't even call it climate and nature anymore. I think planetary gets you out of having to use climate, which I think is useful in the United States. But we have an actual planetary crisis. But it's a very human problem, because we're on the cusp of a much better, safer, cheaper, healthier world, the world of renewable energy. We're moving faster, in fact. The trouble is we're not moving fast enough for the science. That's a very human problem. And we know what's holding us up. It's unfortunately, the fact that we're still too dependent on fossil fuel, and we need to wean ourselves off more quickly. And we need communities to really want this better future, this future of renewable energy. So it has to be imagined. We have to imagine this future. So being a dandelion is linking with all of those who are on the right side, but also using our imagination to say, we want this better future that's around the corner. That is, look at the change it will make for the developing world. When the 600 million in Africa switch the switch for electricity because they have solar power. It's very doable. It can change so much. And you know, I think it's this kind of sense of connecting with the science, but doing it with the sense of what is a human problem and what's holding us up, and how do we address that? And this is at the heart of Project Dandelion.
Yeah. Well, the whole goal is we don't give people fish, we teach them how to fish.
Exactly.
And this is something that we can do, and we need to do now. You know, you're talking about government and fossil fuels. You know, I'm not sure how that's going to go in the United States. So we're going to have to go around some of these things and go to companies that are truly making a difference. And of course, awareness and education is key right now. This is the way we're handling what's going on in the United States. We have a group of warrior women, and what we decided is it's not about challenging and going at them. It's really about going around them and creating education and awareness. What we don't know, we don't know. And this is the important thing, that we begin to totally let the public know, and everyone, that we can get the message out that there is a climate crisis, and we need climate justice. So we're all behind that. Women Connect for Good and all the organizations that we partner with, we're on board.
This is really very encouraging, because I have a sense of such meeting of the minds. And you know, and that's the point I'm making. There are so many of us. If only we can make these connections in a way that lifts everyone. That's a sort of win-win for everyone, and with positive stories, because that gives us the energy, the hope. The hope is action. You know, women, you know, are always practical and action oriented. We want solutions. And this is all about finding those solutions together. And as you say, asking communities, asking people to join us, to be with us, and to help us.
And part of the way we're doing that is with narrative storytelling, Nancy, which you're really good at, and you do it in your newsletters and in so much of the rest of your work. And we see the importance of art and artists and teachers. I mean, all the leaders from every sector recognizing the intersectionality of climate, which was really our first media campaign, and it reached 1 billion people. So 1 billion people downloaded that social media campaign that showed this is every subject of justice you care about, from climate justice to immigrant justice, women, racial, etc. It's all intersectional to solving the planetary crisis.
But to quote Maslow, we have to have certain things happen before we can become stable. We have to have safety, security. Safety, security means food, shelter, and then from there we can't self-actualize. We can't actualize until we have all those things. So the countries that are struggling with that, we can help them tremendously by just creating a safe environment, but an environment that they can grow food and they can feed their families. I mean, it's
letting the world know about it.
Letting the world know about it.
One of the first projects that we're working on, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this, as well as your organizations involved, is the Gates Foundation has asked us to work with a group of smallholder farmers in Ethiopia who represent, as we said earlier, 85% of the food supplies comes from those smallholder women farmers. But this group is doing some very innovative regenerative practices that are addressing the science, the fact that the soil is depleting in almost every country in the world. So we're trying to unlock new financing for this group. And by doing that, modeling the way that new financing can come in to groups like this all over the world, particularly the ones working without proper resources. So we're learning a lot about how we can further empower and strengthen the work already going on. And then at the policy level, start to unite organizations like the ones you work with, get behind the science. Oh, and the good news today, I suppose you both saw it, 89% now of the world's population believes that this is a crisis.
Yeah.
Now, that's a result of science getting out there, Mary, the news from Planetary Guardians getting out there.
Recognizing the problem. Well, there are some organizations that are doing just that. Convoy of Hope is working with farmers. So one of the things that I'm about is creating a better, not creating a wheel, but creating a better wheel. So I think those introductions to other organizations are doing things already in Ethiopia. They're already in Ethiopia. They're already in a lot of third world countries, is to make introductions to see how these organizations can work together. And of course, funding is key. But if you're sharing resources, that's even more important than just throwing dollars at something that somebody's already doing, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But so again, it's about creating those partnerships. That's really, really important.
Yes, well, we'd love to meet with them. We have a couple of examples.
It's a she. It's Dory Donaldson. It's a woman.
Yes,
a huge women and girl empowerment program. I just attended International Women's Day with them, and they had over 900 women attend that. So again, these are organizations that can get the messages out and talk about things that need to be talked about, so we can do something about it as well. So
one of the stories that we're highlighting, Mary might want to speak about this, is Sewa, the group in India who are 2.3 million Indian women who are forming these connections and cooperative coalitions that are totally changing everything. Mary was just there with them.
Yeah, they're a remarkable organization which was founded by a friend of mine. She actually became an elder like me, Ela Bat. And Sewa is more than 50 years old, and it has grown by sheer organization that is spiritual with solidarity. And I mean spiritual across all religions, because they do use hymns, and they work with women in the informal sector, the poorest of the poor. And through sheer organization of the right kind, listening and organizing according to what the women themselves want, they have changed the lives of 3 million women. You know, it's just amazing.
Yeah. Well, you know, this is something I say: if one woman supports you, anything is possible. Anything is possible.
Yeah. Well, I think this is the time when we need to marshal our, you know, and I say marshal in the sense of it's almost a military idea of really stepping up now, stepping up with, you know, with the maximum collaboration, maximum connection, maximum sense of purpose. We have to address the problems in our world together, and do it in a way that is looking forward, that's solving problems for people. And we need a symbol that connects us. And that symbol has to be very light touch and generous, so that nobody feels they have to change. They just have to do with more energy because they feel connection, what they're doing already. And then we'll grow and I think really show that women power, women-led, but not women only, because this way of doing applies to everybody now. And I see it in a lot more many men leaders. And we have wonderful men business leaders who are with us now in Project Dandelion and others. And I think this is where I think, you know, it's wonderful that you're so much in tune with what we've been talking about, and you've been doing so much already. It'd be wonderful to work with you, Nancy. I think we really have a great opportunity.
Yeah. Well, men, I spoke at in Oxford several years ago, and I was talking about women's leadership, but then I started talking about male advocates and sponsors and support, and I could actually hear the men in the room take a breath.
Yes.
The point is that we need to ask men and women what help we need. Yeah. So we need to start asking, and the more we ask, the more we get, and the more we can do. So
yeah.
I say we make some introductions. I say this is just one of many contacts that we'll have, and
Good.
we can move from there. But Melissa Miller-Young, who's my media specialist, we will get information out. So it's just a matter of what you give to us, and then we can make introductions, and we can go from there. And you see us once, and you don't see us, you'll see us again and again. We're hard to get rid of. We're just hard to get rid of.
Sounds like a true dandelion.
Yes, and when Nancy
I am a true
dandelion. And I always feel
once I dig in, watch out. There's nothing I can do. So.
Nancy, we want you to dig in deeply, because your support has been important to every organization you've ever touched. You have dug in, and you've become a leader and a force and a passionate supporter and advocate. And that's what we have to have as well as leadership. And I always think that we should end conversations like this by reminding us all, as Hafset would do if she were here, our Nigerian partner. She always likes to remind us of that great African proverb: if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together.
I use it often. It's one of my favorite, but yes, and one of my favorite is we're all in this together.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's going to take all of us to solve it.
All right. Well, we will be in contact, and like I said, any information that you get to us, we will continue to do a big media splurge out there, get the facts out, because did you know? Yes, we do facts, And of course, we will continue to lift as we rise. We lift as we rise. So thank you all for what you're doing. It's courageous. It's so important. And, we have to leave something wonderful for the next generation. I have children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren to leave that generation, this world a better place for. So thank you so much for everything you do. You all have a wonderful day, and we'll be in touch. If you enjoy these smart, amazing conversations, please subscribe, rate, and review them on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And read and enjoy more amazing stories in my books, In This Together, How Successful Women Support Each Other in Work and Life, and Leading Women, 20 Influential Women Share Their Secrets to Leadership, Business, and Life. Thank you for listening.